Hey y'all, how are you doing? 2020. Man, this year sucked. I'm not gonna beat around the bush.
No confidence.
I don't want to go into details because everyone was affected, but on a personal level, I'm still unemployed. Well, on the plus side, I don't have to go outside, so I can just sit at home and keep doing my thing. Which is actually why I'm doing this video. I'm always conflicted when I think about making a games I played in X year video because I'm always scared I'll have another 2016 incident where the video comes out 7 months into the new year. But well, to put it simply, I like talking about the games I play. Expressing the things I like, picking apart the stuff I don't enjoy, or in the case of an indie game, possibly showing it off to more people. Because if there's one thing I'm good at, it's talking into the void and hoping someone listens. But most importantly, in my eyes, this gives me a chance to talk about games I normally wouldn't get the chance to on this channel. Like city building, strategy, survival simulators. The first game I want to talk about is Banished. Right off the bat, the art style and setting of the game was giving me some serious Stronghold vibes. I was a big fan of Stronghold back when I was gaming on my aunt's Windows 95 computer, and one of my favorite things to do in that game was build my kingdom to be as effective as possible. You know, like maybe if I build my keep here I can get stone from the quarry faster, or if I expand my walls a bit more I might be able to fit another hovel in here. Banished takes that mindset, amps it up to 11, and then kicks you in the balls just because it can. Banished doesn't have any enemies like the gluttonous pig or the conniving snake, but that doesn't mean your people won't die. Actually, you know what? I take that back. There is an enemy in Banished, and its name is Winter. Here's the deal. In the winter, you can't grow crops, so you've got to make sure you stock up before then. Also, build houses for everyone to stay in so they can keep warm and go to town like rabbits. Also, be careful with how you manage your resources because wood is needed to build most buildings, and to make firewood so your villagers don't freeze to death. And yes, wood and firewood are two different things. Honestly, this is a really hard game to recommend because, I mean, how do I recommend a game like this? Banished is as simple as games like this get. There's no research trees or combat or even any building upgrades.
Actually, there is a building upgrade, but it's just one thing, so who gives a fuck?
Apparently there are natural disasters that can happen, but in my near 15 hours of playtime, I never encountered one. At the risk of possibly offending somebody, Banished is kind of like an ant farm. Sure, it might be fun to start building it, but once your inhabitants have everything under control, things start to become stagnant on your end because your attention just isn't needed as much. It's hard to recommend management games like this, but it's really hard to recommend a game where the main challenge is the initial startup. I can really only recommend this one if it's on sale, because even if you are a fan of these types of games like I am, I sadly can't see much entertainment from this in the long run. Speaking of survival civilization builders where the cold is your main problem, Frostpunk. Let me ask you something, have you ever played SimCity? How about a SimCity in a post-apocalyptic ice age? Oh wait, actually there's probably a mod for that, isn't there? Unlike Banished, Frostpunk actually has a plot. A bunch of volcanoes erupted, blocking out the sun, trapping the earth in a never-ending winter. You got these giant coal-powered generators to heat up cities, your character is the leader of a group of people from London looking for a new home, and here it is! Welcome to New London. Resources are scarce, the people have no faith in you, and the temperatures range from -20 to -70. Good luck, asshole! Alright, so remember what I said about Banished kicking you in a bad spot? Well, in that game's defense, at least it lets up once things start going steady. Frostpunk, on the other hand, yeah, no, they'll keep kicking you in the balls. I haven't played any of the other modes, but in the main story at least, they throw a lot of curveballs your way to keep you on your toes. You're asked to make some tough decisions like enforcing child labor laws, have your people venture outside the city in search of survivors, and at one point the people even begin to rise against you in a violent protest under the belief that their best chance of survival is to return to old London. And that's as far as I got before I was exiled. I'd certainly like to try and make it to the end someday, maybe even try out the DLC chapters once I save up the money. I do want to give what may be a controversial recommendation, though. I know this game was built with PCs in mind, but I'd recommend getting the PS4 or Xbox One versions, especially if you're not confident in your computer's gaming power. My laptop can play most games with ease, but it does struggle a bit with Frostpunk, and even slows it to a crawl once I exit the game. So yeah, just be wary of your specs if you decide to get this one. Alright, so I'm sure you guys have at least heard a guilty pleasure game, but how about a guilty pleasure series? I put quite a bit of time into Army of Two Devil's Cartel, so when I saw that the first Army of Two game was on sale for a whole $2, I kind of wanted to see how bad it was. Okay, maybe bad isn't the right word here, but the Army of Two series is a mediocre at best series of third-person shooters where you and a buddy kick terrorist ass in the name of America. Except, I don't have anyone to play with, and the first game's servers were shut down some time ago, so, I'm stuck with the partner AI. Which would be fine if this game didn't suffer greatly from first game syndrome. It's more of a proof of concept, if anything. The story is pushed to the side in favor of the gameplay, the co-op sniping mechanic is almost never given a chance to be used, the effects of the overkill mechanic are random, I think. The upgrades for later guns might as well just be called Pimp My Gun, and there's a spot in the final level where you can get knocked down with no way to recover. Who approved this level? Alright, so what about the positives? Well, it's functional, the partner AI is decent at least. Did I mention this is a guilty pleasure for me? I mean, there's not much to say. It's a mindless third-person shooter, so I play it as such. This is the type of game you play after a hard day of work to let off some steam, or maybe just to have some stupid fun with your friends. Proceed with caution on this one. I can really only recommend it on sale. Or, you know, you could just buy the sequel 40th Day, which is considered the best one. And now here's a real quick lightning round. Tetris DS. It's Tetris, on the DS, with lots of cool modes. Borderlands. I never played the DLC before this year, and I wish I hadn't. Dokapon Kingdom. Slowly break your friendships over the course of several months, and then break them completely in Among Us. Now back to your regularly scheduled Lime Boy Dinah first. So a bit earlier in the year, I got my hands on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection. I really like the original Castlevania, as well as the third game, so it's nice to finally have these games on a console I actually own now. All the other games in the collection I played for the first time in 2020, but I'm not going to talk about each individual game. We'd be here all day if I did. Instead, I'm going to talk about the highlight of the collection for me, Castlevania II Simon's Quest. This game has gone down in internet history as one of the worst games ever made, so naturally I had to see what makes this game so terrible, and it's not as bad as I thought it'd be? I mean, gameplay-wise it's Castlevania, but you do have to grind for hearts in order to buy items. I'm an RPG fan, this means nothing to me. Though the day and night transition text did get a bit annoying after a while. And honestly, I think the cryptic clues that people complain about have been greatly exaggerated. Like, yeah, the red crystal hint is dumb, but you're told to do something similar with the blue crystal early on, so why wouldn't you try kneeling at the cliff? It's just me, isn't it? What else? Oh, this game gave us Bloody Tears, I love that song. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot to say about this game. It's a cryptic open-world Castlevania at best, and a tedious action platformer at worst. I don't think it was awful, but it's still not really something I'd recommend. I'd still play it over Castlevania The Adventure, though. F*** that game. So, earlier in 2020, we actually got an announcement for a new Alex Kidd game, and that caused me to get a bit of an itch to play some Genesis games. So after going through most of my Genesis collection, I randomly remembered the Pixelated Memories episode where the host, Elliot, talks about his favorite childhood game. I recommend checking out that video if you haven't yet. I'll be sure to put it in the description. But Elliot's enthusiasm for the game made me want to check it out. The fact that it seemed to be an action platformer RPG also helped with that, so I played Wonderboy and Monster World. I feel I need to mention this first because I really love this art style. The character sprites are really cute, the use of colors is great for the areas they're trying to present, and the bosses have some really cool designs. What really stood out to me was just how well the game was with its pacing. Areas never felt too long, and there were usually shortcuts to get me back to where I wanted to go. This game kind of has Star Tropic syndrome, though, in that it wants you to talk to literally everybody so that you can find that one specific person that will get the quest moving. I've always been a bit hit or miss on that. The music was a pretty big highlight for me as well. Just about anything coming from the Genesis sound chip will sound good, but Monster World's soundtrack has a more orchestral feeling? I really don't know how else to describe it, but it's pretty damn good. Like I said earlier, Wonderboy Monster World is probably best described as an action RPG platformer. And I know the term RPG just made some people wince a bit, but thankfully there's not too much grinding to be done. There's no level up system in Monster World, just better gear to buy, so at the most you'll have to farm a bit for coins to buy things like shields, armor, your choice of sword or spear, and boots that make you run a little faster. There's also 5 different types of magic to collect and power up, and yeah, I said 5, definitely not 6. I had fun with Wonderboy Monster World, but in all honesty, I almost got turned away by the second area. 2 things. 1, that enemy design. Yeah, didn't age very well. And 2, the area's dungeon. Dude, this place just sucks. There's pitfall traps that send you to previous rooms, the boss fight is obnoxious, and I was not happy to learn that when I died I had to do the whole damn thing over again. Frankly, there's not much else I can say without going into a full deep dive of the game. Again, I recommend Elliot's video. Maybe that'll give you a better idea on if this is the game for you. Pokmon Cafe Mix is a cute little puzzle game that's just a nice thing to relax to. Unless you're capturing footage for it, because this is a handheld-only game on the Switch, so I can't just plug in my capture card to record and play like I normally do. Now let me tell you why this is one of my favorite puzzle games on the mobile market. It's because it doesn't feel like one. Yes, there are microtransactions, but I never felt like they were being shoved into my face, and yes, it does have that stupid stamina mechanic that so many mobile games have, but it's limited to only retries. If you screw up on a puzzle, you need stamina to try again, so depending on your skill level, you might not even notice it until you've gotten a few puzzles in. It's one of the few games that I'm okay with having this mechanic, because it shows that I screwed up rather than being all like, oh hey, I see that you're enjoying our game, well, you know, you could play a little longer if you gave us a bit of money. Wah. Alright, so how's this game play out? Well, in simple terms, you grab a Pokemon's face and drag it around to match it with other faces, completing your checklist along the way. There are a few gimmicks you'll need to take care of. For example, ending your chain next to a sugar cube will cause it to crack and eventually break. Honey will multiply if you leave it on the screen for too long, and so on. One of my favorite things to do is just relax with a puzzle game as I sit down for bed, and Cafe Mix has done a good job of that. Even if it does lead to more midnight snacking than usual, I can only make so many fluffy Eevee pancakes and hot Litwick Cocos before my mind starts giving my stomach ideas. My only real complaint has to do with how the pieces are laid out. I think this game would have benefited more from a grid-based system, because everything being affected by gravity can lead to some very frustrating moments. Like, look at this, I just want to get the tomato out of the damn... Urgh! But overall, I recommend checking this one out if you haven't already. Just, be careful how you play if your mind is weaker than your stomach. Cheesy relic pizza. So, from one puzzle game with pancakes to another, we have Helltaker. Honestly, I'd be surprised if you haven't heard of this game by now, considering just how much attention it's gotten on the internet, but just on the off chance you didn't... Helltaker is a short indie puzzle game where you have to solve 10 different puzzles in order to recruit a harem of demon girls. Yeah, it's a bit lewd in nature. In fact, I thought it was an adult game when I first heard about it, because everything I saw regarding this game was just piles upon piles of fan art that I'd never be able to show on this channel. But actually, it's not a bad puzzle game. Yeah, it's only got 10 levels, so you can probably finish it in under an hour, but there's actually quite a bit of head-scratchers here. Personally, I only had to look up a guide for level 3, but that's because I can better visualize block-pushing puzzles rather than this spiky plate of bull cookies. There's also some pretty humorous character moments, like the advice tab, which is just straight-up useless advice from your girls. And I don't want to spoil the solution to Lucifer's puzzle, but it got a chuckle out of me. There was only one part of the game I really didn't like, and spoiler alert, it's the final boss. Yeah, there's a boss fight in this game, and honestly, it really feels out of place here. A lot of my deaths didn't feel like they were my fault, and I'm gonna blame it on the fact that this is a fast-paced boss fight shoved into a puzzle game that requires you to actually think things through before acting. I recommend checking this one out. Helltaker is free to play, so you're not really losing anything except your time, and again, it's a pretty short game. But on the other hand, if you want to support the one-man development team behind this game, you could buy the soundtrack that comes with his Demon Charming Pancake recipe. That's a pretty good deal to me. And why are we still here? Is that all you people ever think about? Well, I can't answer that. I kind of have a thing for girls in suits, so, yeah, they're all A+ in my book. So, I like rhythm games. I'm bad at them, but I really do like playing them. I remember in my 2016 video, I said that Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure was my favorite game on the 3DS, and, yeah, it's still pretty high up there. It's still a game I occasionally come back to, and I think it kind of helped rekindle my love for the genre. And this year I played Muse Dash. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce this name, so I'm sorry if that offends you somehow. Also, I'm using music from not this game because I don't know what I can and can't use. I guess the best way I can explain Muse Dash is that it's an auto-scrolling action rhythm game where you pummel your enemies to the beat of the music. You only have 2 buttons to work with, so it's pretty easy to get into, but like any good game, the difficulty gradually ramps up as you go on. As you clear stages, you'll unlock more songs as well as costumes ranging from cute to risque to... I'm very uncomfortable right now. But the costumes do have an effect on gameplay, so there's actually some incentive to unlock them. And even if you don't count the DLC, there's still a lot of songs here. Like, 47 songs are bound to keep you busy, especially when you take note of the fact that the game is only about $3 in most currencies. So yeah, this game gets a high recommendation from me. The visuals are nice and colorful, the characters are cute, and the music is addicting. I know you kind of have to take my word on that last one, but copyright on YouTube's a bitch, and I'm not flying any closer to the sun than I already have. So to continue with the segue of genres that I'm apparently going with, the other rhythm game I played this year was Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight. I'm a Persona fan, for those that don't know, so the Persona-themed rhythm games were basically a match made in heaven for me. But, that's the thing. They're a match made for me because I'm a Persona fan. I'm gonna say right now, I can't recommend these games to anybody outside of the Persona fandom. That might sound like a no-duh to some people, but other people might be like, you know, how bad can it be? They're just crappy spin-offs. No, they expect you to have played the games they're based off of. They expect you to have beaten 5. They expect you to have finished 4. They expect you to get to some point in 3. I actually don't know where in the timeline this was shoved into. But alright, enough of that. So, how does the game feel? Relatively well? The game had some quirks I needed to get used to. Like how a good note still breaks your combo. There's one type of note called a scratch you hit by flicking the right stick. Yeah, that felt awkward as hell. I remapped that as soon as I could. And while I love Persona 3's cast, during the dances they,
Good job. Keep it up. You've got me really fired up. Your moves are always overflowing with power, Akihiko-senpai.
You can tell they trust each other.
There's so much energy when I team up with you, Akihiko-senpai.
get really annoying. But it's still a cast I love and remember. The stern but caring Mitsuru, the quirky Aigis, the
first one was more imposing, and the angle of my arm wasn't as sharp. Oh wait, was that the second one?
dumbass Junpei. There's even social link events to unlock for them. It's great, I love these guys. There's outfits and accessories to unlock, there's even challenge multipliers if you're a god of rhythm games. It's so much fun. If you're a Persona fan who also happens to like rhythm games, give this one a go. Preferably on sale, if you plan on getting all free. And hey, for all you Sega fans out there, one of the songs was remixed by the main composer of Jet Set Radio.
I've never felt like so level. I've never felt like thinking this will last forever. Better stay with me. You gotta tell me you like come all over me.
So I actually didn't get a whole lot of time with my PS4 this year. I really only got to play a few games at the start of the year. Persona 3 Dancing, like I mentioned earlier, and another one was Yakuza Kiwami. Dude, just... Yakuza's great. I played Zero the year before and was utterly addicted. I'm not even joking. I have over 200 hours in that game, and I still don't have the Platinum Trophy. I'll get it someday. But Kiwami was a nice change of pace from Zero. It still has a bunch of ridiculous side missions, but not too much that dragged out the main story, I felt. Speaking of, I really liked the story, but it's also a story I don't really want to talk about because I feel like even just knowing how it begins might ruin the experience for someone. So, sorry if you wanted to hear me talk about it, just know that I think it's great. But the combat system, oh boy. Okay, so it's not terrible, but it feels really sluggish when compared to Yakuza 0. And yeah, I know, there's a story reason for that, but a fully upgraded Kiryu in this game still doesn't compare to 0. And the Kiwami mechanic that was added in this game, yeah, it's cool the first time, maybe even the second, but it just drags out the fights. But of course, all negatives are mute because Majima is everywhere. Look, I'm not saying I'm gay for Majima, but
Are you winning, Watson?
when it comes to recommending a starting point in the Yakuza series, I see a lot of people recommend this one since you won't have to deal with the feeling that you're just playing a second-rate version of Yakuza 0. I can see where they're coming from, but frankly, you really should be playing Yakuza for the story. So if you're new, I personally recommend starting with 0. And if you have played 0, you should probably play Kiwami while it's all fresh in your mind. Trust me, I think you'll like Kiwami more if you know Kiryu's story beforehand. Now, in terms of my favorite game I played in 2020, well, I wouldn't have much to talk about other than the new stuff that was added, and I'd just be repeating myself. Wait, I never talked about that game on this channel. Persona 5 Royal! Now, some of you might see this as unfair since I played through Persona 5 and I loved every moment of it. But I'm being completely honest when I say this. When I played through Persona 5 Royal, it felt like I was experiencing my favorite game from recent memory for the first time all over again. Even before getting to the new stuff near the end game, there was just enough new stuff sprinkled throughout the main story to keep it interesting. Frankly, I don't know what so many people are talking about when they say that Royal doesn't add anything new. Y'all just hit the fast forward button, didn't you? But like seriously, there's new places to explore, new characters, new events with old characters, new challenges, and so much more that you probably didn't even realize. I still love this story, and I can't help but give extra kudos to the writing team for finding a way to renew the old script in such a way that it feels somewhat natural, because that really isn't an easy thing to do. The new characters are so much fun to be around, and it's great to see them interacting with your favorite characters. Or, you know, they could be your old favorites because Kasumi's a great new addition. I'm really not the type of person to be all like, oh, you need to play this game, it's fantastic, you're gonna absolutely love it, because frankly that's a very unrealistic expectation. But if you have a similar taste in video games as I do, and you haven't played Persona 5 yet, then I highly recommend you find a way to play the Royal version. It is a story-heavy RPG, so it does take a bit to really get going, but it's one of my favorites for a reason. To everyone watching this, I wish you all luck in this new year, take it easy, stay positive, and hey, why not share with me your personal gaming highlight from 2020? I'm always up for learning of potential new games, maybe something you played might catch my eye. Stay positive, y'all.